Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. We do this every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. We co-stream this on our 3 channels. We've got Brian White here from Future Asa back from China. His trip to China. Nick Gibbs will be hopefully joining us shortly. But let's get started here. News this morning is Joe Tegmeyer was showing this off. He said that there's been more Tesla Cybercab castings at Giga Texas. Looks like around 75 or so in the racks, waiting for production line testing, or more than that. So take a look at this. There we've got, hey, Nick, welcome. I'm just playing this thing that came out this morning from Joe Tegmeyer showing all these new Cybercab castings.
Probably nothing.
Probably nothing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they do look like they're new. This is more above and beyond what we saw before, because just the way that they're stacked and where they're stacked, it's all new.
And there was an article last week that said because of the parts crunch, Tesla's going to have to change some of their parts sourcing for Cybercab and Semi. And then, of course, that immediately turned into, in social media and in the comments of my videos, oh, they're just making excuses to delay Cybercab. Nope, this is not what a delay looks like, my friends. And considering the products are not, neither one is expected to go into tremendous volume this month. A delay in sourcing does not mean a delay in the project overall. These are not vehicles that are going to be using a whole lot of imported parts from anywhere, let alone China. I do not see the delay that is so fabled.
What does it mean though, Brian, if you see 75 here and we saw hundreds last week? Are you expecting, I don't know, let's say 100 Cybercabs built this year, or they're just testing it out and it still won't be built till next year?
For testing, you don't put them on racks. You pile them, you stack them, or you chuck them. These are finished, viable castings. It means that they probably had a better go dialing in the gigapress, the castings than they expected, which doesn't surprise me. They've gotten very good at large castings, and by Tesla standards, these really aren't that big. So this tells me, I mean, I really think that internally they might have this solved to a degree that would allow them to go wide sooner than I expected.
When are we going to see these cars on the road? This year?
This year for sure. But I'm thinking, my thought was we would see a few, maybe a handful, maybe a dozen or two Cybercabs in the quarter following launch, in the 3 months after launch, just because they might just need safety drivers for legal or just safety reasons. This tells me that we're going to pass the safety requirement very quickly, and that they will want to move as quickly as they can into Cybercab because it is the better platform for it.
So you guys both, I mean, we heard Elon say that there's going to be Model Ys. That's what we're going to see on the launch. That's day one. Are you guys expecting that Cybercabs will join in on that, let's say a month later, 2 months later, or are we expecting next year, January?
I'll let Nick go first on that.
No, I mean, if things go smoothly, I think you'll see them, at least by the end of the year. I don't think they're like, I don't think they need a safety driver. I mean, the way they talked on the earnings call, they mentioned no safety driver. They said they would be, I forget the terminology, but like essentially someone to be able to intervene if something came up. But so, yeah, I mean, I don't think I mean, they said that they would be in volume production by early 2026. To me, that means that they have to start production soon, and you're not building those just to put them in a parking garage and sit there and look pretty.
Exactly. The storage space for items of this size is substantial. I saw people saying, well, maybe Tesla's importing a year's worth of goods from China in advance of tariffs just in case. And I said, you don't understand the volume of space that entails. Even if you're just talking about, well, it's just the wheels for a car. That's those are bulky, man. Those take up a ton of space that Tesla doesn't necessarily have, and space costs money and time costs money.
So what I understand is, I think Farzad asked Grok. Grok said that in Texas, the rules, the regulations, does not require a remote driver, or sorry, a driver at the onset. You can go ahead and do driverless cars right away. California, though, they apparently, just I did the show recently where they were coming up with new rules that they're negotiating that will require permits for every single step, including you need to start off with a driver in the car first. Now, the question is too, though, maybe Tesla's already been doing that, right? They've already gotten these permits as they tested it with their own employees first. And that's usually the way it works, right? You got to use your own employees. You got to have a driver in a car. Then you can remove them after you get permit after permit. But that's California. Apparently, you don't need to do that in Texas. So
Now here's a question I have, and I think I know the answer, but I'm not positive. Do the miles logged in Texas count towards validation in California? They certainly they certainly should. They certainly should. It's the same car on the same software, the same hardware, the same everything. I don't need to validate in each state that wants to be sticky, do I?
Yeah, that's part of the hopefully the new federal framework can address things like that as opposed to state by state, right?
Yeah, I think this whole topic is not saying that you are for bringing it up. I'm saying in general, this topic, when people debate this, it's a silly topic to debate. Just because, like, everyone says, like what you said there, normally the way it works is like there is no normally. We saw one company do it one way once. Since then, like, okay, we've also seen rockets go up and explode, come back down. But normally that's how it works. Well, now we land rockets. Things change, things evolve, and Tesla is not at the same stage that Waymo was whenever they were having safety drivers in there. Even on the earnings call with Larry, we talked about it, and I pointed out that even now Waymo does not have safety drivers in that long on a per city basis. Like it's reduced drastically. So I don't think that this is. I think this is going to be the smallest blip of time where we even talk about safety drivers in the vehicle. I think, to Brian's point, Tesla's already been doing this. They're already doing it in California. California is not going to sit there and hold up the brakes with regulation for Robotaxi to go out there when Texas is sitting there going from Austin to Houston to San Antonio to Dallas. Oh, we're opening up Florida, but California is still waiting because, well, we need our safety. Like, that's not going to be the way it works.
Yeah, hopefully that sounds right. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is Robotaxi versus recession. If there is a recession, see what's going to happen. Is this a big enough of a move? In this case, Tesla is getting into Robotaxi in June, that regardless of what happens with the macro, this could still, move the stock? Or does it, just like usually, you need the macro to be cooperating? And if people are willing to make bets on growth companies and beta stocks like Tesla, that's what only will happen, regardless if it's Robotaxi or robots. Nobody will be investing in the stock until the macro recovers. So why don't you give us an update, Nick? What is the latest reports on what to expect for the rest of the year?
I just wanted to say something real quick in support of what Nick just said. There is no usually. It either works or it doesn't. When this works, and I'm confident it will, it doesn't matter what roadblocks you try and put up. It's going to happen sooner or later.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a lot of interesting economic data today. On top of it being the 100 days of the new administration, today's a funny day. And so let's start off with, I guess, like the headline news was that GDP was down negative 0.3%. I'm assuming that's what you're leaning towards here,
yep.
Herbert.
Yep.
That is considered to be fuzzy of a negative 3%. There's a lot of, and what I'm about to say is going to sound like I don't know what I'm talking about, but I assure you, this is the real situation on the ground right now. There's a lot of imports, and there's a lot of imports that we brought in that aren't accounted for on that negative 0.3. But those same things aren't considered landed or sold. And it's like it's missing in the data, if you will. There's a lot of it. And the thought is that that will be reflected in Q2. And nobody is actually crystal clear on this. Like they were talking about on CNBC, on Bloomberg, all like everyone was talking about like this like weirdness that we have right now in the data. And so this negative 0.3, I mean, that's the number. That's what came out, right? The maths in that sense. But there's almost like this missing data where if you factored in what they think would have been there and you put that into Q2 might look like a overly bullish GDP. So all I'm saying is like there's some weirdness in the data right now. And so I wouldn't take any one individual metric right now as too much of a signal for anything. Anytime you get a negative print on GDP, that's going to raise your eyebrows for sure. But there's weird things going on that even the supposed experts and the people who are paid to, report on this, even they're like, okay, there's weird stuff happening in the numbers right now. I mean, Atlanta Fed GDP was off hugely on the number. It came in on what everyone was kind of expecting because of this weirdness in the numbers. So there's just weirdness happening at the moment. And it could be because people were front running potential tariffs. It could be because things are like, it's weird. It's not showing up in the inventory either. So it's just all weird. It's not showing up as sold. It's not showing up as inventory. So there's missing goods on paper. So
it fell off a truck.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the GDP part of it. We also had, which I think is more signal than what that was, the ADP numbers came in a lot lighter than expected. I think essentially 50% lighter. And that is something that I think is happening. I do think that we are seeing less hiring. I think you aren't necessarily seeing more layoffs, but you're definitely seeing less hiring, which is a sign of what we all know is contracting economy. So we get PCE soon. We'll get more inflation data. The Fed's going to speak soon. I anticipate the Fed is going to do a bullish or a dovish pause, as they would say, meaning they're going to, I think, pretty much project forward that they're going to cut in June. Betting markets are, I think, like 60% now for a cut, maybe even higher after today's print. So there's a lot there. If I had to add one more piece, we're also in this time period where the old adage, sell in May and go away, so we're in this period of time right now where things are just naturally slowing. Now, where I think you're going with this question about robotaxis and is it, I don't know, recession proof or do we need it or not? The way I think about it, by the time we actually have robotaxis out there to be meaningful, if we have a recession, when we have a recession, we'll be out of that recession by the time it's even meaningful.
So my question for you is, because I've seen people say, Tesla sales are down because of XYZ. And I say, no, they're down because of retooling. The impact of XYZ can't be known until Q2, maybe Q3. My question for you is, when will we have a clearer picture on what this front running of tariffs may have, how it may have skewed the numbers? When will we see a better picture?
My opinion is that you never will have a clear picture on it. I don't think you can. How do you parse out that Tesla sales were down because of tariffs?
No, not Tesla. Not Tesla. I was just using that as an example.
The economy?
This strange GDP number, when will we see that wiggle out in the wash?
I think Q3 will be real. I think Q3...
that's a long time.
It is. Well, because Q2 is going to be influenced by the things that didn't make it onto the spreadsheet for Q1. So all the goods that came in that aren't in inventory also weren't sold. Where are those? They magically are somewhere, but no one knows where. Right. So that's going to be reflected.
The supply chain is very expeditious. A lot of things that come in are sold within a month or two. But I mean, just about everything except high value items are cleared within 5-6 months for sure. So I would think that
that's Q3.
Yeah, no, I said that's the very, very end of it.
Yeah, but you also remember the data lags, right?
Are we going to see? That's my question.
Yeah.
I'm not arguing. I'm learning.
Yeah.
And
No. Again, I don't even know if we'll be able to tell, because you have the tariffs have an influence on the economy over here, right? So this is one variable on this big economy pushing this way. But then you have this other vector here, which is the Fed trying to slow the economy intentionally so inflation comes down. But then they also might, boom, start putting some rate cuts. And then what does that do? Well, maybe that makes the market more euphoric. And then now all of a sudden you don't really know what was what. Like it all just gets messy. Everything. So I don't know. And I think it's kind of a waste of time in general to try to figure out, like, what was the tariff impact? What was the rate cut impact? It's better just to understand what's happening and understand if you're on a risk on or risk off environment, I think is kind of like the better way to think about things. And right now, I would say we are in a risk on a moderate risk off. We were in a very risk off. Things are calming down a lot, and I think we're slowly getting into a potentially more risk on market. But that's where I see things right now. Like there's a huge bull case to be made in the next month or two. There's also a decent bearish case to be made, but I don't think a huge bearish case to be made.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's my point. I think that where I lean is that stocks, obviously the most important thing is macro and risk off versus risk on. And with everything you've just said, it could very well turn out to be a risk off environment still in the next 6 months. And then with earnings associated with Robotaxi not appearing until second half of next year, which is always what I've been, talking about. I did a number of shows, and CERN, his earnings showed up that it won't be until second half of next year. But by the way, the second half of 2026, not only will earnings from Robotaxi start, like Elon said, moving the needle, but that's when we will start seeing earnings upon earnings growth. Every earnings from then on will keep growing because of this. And that's when stocks will have to follow. But from now till next year, I've been trying to calm people down, because I do not and have not been expecting that the stock will pop because of Robotaxi launch in June, especially if we're not in a risk on environment, like full risk on. If we were fully risk on, everything's euphoric, then maybe a Robotaxi launch could do it. That's my own feeling. And so I've been asking this question to as many people as I can in the last several shows, the last several spaces I've been on, and I get different answers from different people. Where do you guys sit on this? What do you guys think might happen from the June launch? Is that going to pop the stock a little bit, despite what's going on with the recession or not recession, or the current situation we're in?
I don't think it is, because retail will absolutely love it, but retail is kind of as all in as they can get. Institutionals, I think, will be hesitant because they're cautious, they're old fashioned, they're traditional. And if they don't experience it themselves, they may not get it. When Tesla held their investor day, Sandy Munro was invited to it because that's a logical person to bring. And he heard, no joke, 2 different people there ask, "Where's the shrimp platter?" And Tesla did not have a shrimp platter. That's not what investment days are about. Apparently, to these institutional investors, it is. And if you looked at the room, everyone there was so bored. They had their pens and paper literally in a room where you would think that, and they were just bored. What am I doing? Why have I been sent here? And all of us at home are just devouring this like it's the most fascinating thing ever, because if you understand it, it is. And investors came away from it going, yeah, it was an okay presentation, but where's the shrimp? And the stock didn't respond. And that's, to me, endemic of what's wrong with institutional investors and why they don't get it.
Yeah, Herbert, I'll say one other thing about the macro real quick is the tariffs are the news story, right? That everyone's talking about. Before that, it was Elon and Doge, and before that, it was euphemism around Trump and all that. But there's been this underlying story since even before the election, and that's our debt crisis that we're in. Maybe you think it's crisis, maybe you don't, but it doesn't really matter what you think. The bond market and gold is telling you that it is a problem. And you see gold hitting record highs, top of record highs. Like, this isn't a coincidence. The bond market not going down after rate cuts. This isn't a coincidence. Like, this is a message to the Fed about our debt. So that's unequivocal, and that is going to linger until either we do something to control our debt, or we start to show moderate inflation, right? What the Fed decided, what was it, 2010, that 2% was the number, with a lot of growth. Because then we can outgrow our debt, and then things kind of go back into more balance, right? Our debt to income ratio looks better. So that is going to continue to linger until something changes. And who knows when that is, or how that'll come about, or we have a big issue and then all bets are off. So that's going to linger. I don't think that's going away anytime soon. Tariffs can go away. Anything Elon bad, Doge, that can go away. All these things can go away for better or worse. Other things can show up, but that's going to linger, and that's going to be something that's sitting there on, underneath all of this until it gets dealt with. Don't forget about that. The other thing, to answer your question about Tesla stock going up, robotaxis. Look, we thought when Giga Berlin was going to go online, stock would go up. When Texas went online, go up. When FSD12 came out, go up. When the refresh, the Juniper, all these, we've had so many things about when it would. Herbert, you're famous. You've got your list. I would say not a single one of those led to the stock going up. In the last 4 years, not even earnings, because it's gone up just as much as it's gone down more after earnings than it's gone up.
Not during the earnings call, but after good earnings and then continued earnings continue, that's when the stock raises. It's basically following cash. Yeah.
But even then, when was the last time we had good earnings? Let's be honest with ourselves, right? We've had not as disappointing earnings, but we haven't had good earnings in a long time. I would say in the last 4 years, the only time the stock went up was October of 21, 22, something like that. After the Hertz announcement, we saw a big up. That didn't last too long. And then after the election, we saw a stock go up. That didn't last too long. So all these times where we thought this would be the catalyst, this will be the catalyst, they haven't been. And I would argue that
it's because it's macro driven. That's my point. The last 4 years, until the macro turns around, that's when this will happen. And no announcements will make it go up if interest rates are still high and all this, which is where we're at. This uncertainty we're still in.
I don't think it's. Let me pick this apart a little bit, or not pick it apart. Let me give my point of view on this. I don't think it's macro related in many ways. Okay, let me say this differently. Sorry, I'm choosing my words carefully here. I do think it's macro related. I don't think if macro is bad, Tesla can't go up. I don't think that's the case. Because here's where I think, or how I think, or when Tesla will actually start to reflect robotaxi supremacy. I think that'll happen when Tesla when Tesla has more vehicles in operation than Waymo does in Austin and maybe San Fran too. Because right now, if you think about it, who's number one in autonomy robotaxis right now? It's Waymo. Who's number two? There is no number two. Forget China. There is no other number two in the world. No one else is giving autonomous rides. No one. Zero. Period. So if Tesla passes Waymo in Austin and San Fran, there's going to be a moment where it's okay, they are number one and they're moving faster than everybody else. There's not a number three. And number two is moving slow as molasses. And I think at that point, it's this is going to be a winner takes most. And I think then you could see it reflect before we actually see it on the balance sheet, because then it's over. It's clear. It's who's catching SpaceX? I don't know. No one. So NASA was ahead, but SpaceX passed NASA a long time ago.
Yeah. So you answered my question, which is good, right? When is that? And that's I'll go through the numbers of when do we surpass, how many cars does Waymo have? I still don't think that that's going to happen. It's not going to, but I'm just being conservative that it's going to, the Tesla Robotaxi will reflect in Tesla stock when that milestone gets hit. Especially certain if we're in a bad macro, but B, Waymo, is number one, but no one's really valuing how valuable this is because they still see it as a test. And really, it's not, you're not seeing Google stock and they hide it still, right? They don't show the actual impact because it's bad numbers. They're not showing that people aren't buying Google stock because of Waymo, is what I'm saying at this point. Just like few people are buying Tesla stock because of robots right now. Not quite yet, like not the big moves. And so good answer though. I did want to have that from you and others, which is, okay, what's the milestones? And as soon as Tesla has 1,000 cars in, Tesla can turn that on. Like I've got a stat here that Farzad put out. Tesla can make 1,000 autonomous cars in a week. So as soon as they say it's going to go on, Austin or wherever, they can do that very quickly.
It's not even
but
that.
I still don't think that's enough. Yeah.
It's look, right now Waymo's putting out, we did 250,000 rides, whatever. What happens when at the end of the year, Tesla did 3x what it took Waymo to do in whatever, like,
I don't think so.
I mean?
I think what matters, like Elon is saying, it has to move the needle for earnings. I don't think just people are stubborn, like the investors are stubborn. They're not going to pump up the stock until they see impact to earnings. They'll always come up with the next thing. Oh, it's okay. They have 1,000, but can they really, is the consumers going to really want to use it? Oh, the consumers love it. Oh, but I got to see them really. It only matters when they have 100,000. And can they go beyond cities? You know what I mean?
Why were we just at $500?
That's the argument. I think you're right. Like, why did we jump close to $500 when we had none of this, right? All of that.
Brian's got the answer.
Well, my answer was back to it's macro. It's that not macro, but the euphoria of risk on versus risk off. And I think when Trump got elected, the sentiment changed, and then people start to invest back risk on again, risk off. Risk off, and they start to invest, and that's what made it go up. And then with the tariff hits and where we're at today, then the people are getting skittish again. And
so let's talk about FSD being right now. Waymo is in the lead on account of them being the only serious company. Zoox has their vehicle. It doesn't appear to be remotely scalable at this time. Maybe that will change. If Tesla's in that mix soon, then who is in third place? No one, except in China. So in the US, it could be a Waymo versus Tesla situation. Globally, it's going to be the China show. China's got many companies that are doing this pretty well. There is a real handcuff on their testing, though. Apparently, by law in China, the vehicle to supervisor ratio is 3-to-1. There is always going to be one supervisor for 3 vehicles. They've got to move past that. And I think the fact that they haven't done it yet is because none of the manufacturers are pushing them to relax it beyond that because it's not ready. So outside the US, we could see that shifting quite a bit. In terms of rockets, everybody has seen that reusable rockets is the key, and everybody says they're working on it. No one's really getting there just yet. Worth noting that SpaceX didn't surpass NASA. NASA's always used contractors to build their rockets. Even the Apollo missions, the Mercury missions, all of them were built by contractors. It's just that NASA typically ran their own mission control, so it seemed like it was a NASA rocket. And Waymo, but let's pretend for a second Waymo is done, is solved. It can scale. It is completely hands off on the supervision side. Their vehicle costs too much to build. You're starting with a $50,000 car, adding $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 worth of stuff, versus Tesla's starting at $25,000, and that's it. You're done. That even at 75,000, even at 150,000 mile lifespan at 50% utilization, Waymo's cost for the car alone, before insurance, before energy, before any of that, is $1 a mile, where Tesla's is 33 cents a mile. You are done. Well, yes, but Waymo's got a new form factor. They're going to use the Zeekr mix. Great. That's from China. Do you know what your import tariff is going to be? And you can try and claim there's going to be a drawback, or we're going to find some loophole that lets us just have it. Right. that means you bought it. You still have to pay the tariff. There is no free lunch. Great, you found something you really love, but it's still prohibitively expensive. And even if you could get it without the import duties, it's still going to be 50 to 70 grand. You're still at that disadvantage. None of it makes sense. If Tesla solves this, which I have confidence they will, it's going to be a bloodbath for everyone else.
So do you have a date or milestone that you think could move the stock despite it not showing up as moving the needle in earnings until next year?
Well, so I just came back from China. So no milestones, but I do have kilometer stones, but I don't know the conversion. So
Sure.
no, I don't know the dates on it.
Brian, have you made a video yet reviewing the autonomous situation over there?
No, because I was in Shanghai and all of the autonomous research is being done in Shenzhen, and I did not
Okay.
go there because it's 1,000 miles farther away.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so you didn't get to ride in any. Okay.
I got to ride in 3 different vehicles with autonomous systems, the Huawei, which was quite good, the Xiaomi, which was pretty good, and the Neo, which was terrifying. It was a horror show. It was literally, they wouldn't even let you drive it, and there was a critical disengagement about, no joke, every half a block.
And
So
scale 1 to 10 for, you said the Huawei was the best one. Scale 1 to 10, where would you rank it? And FSD, say just here in the States, how would you rank it? Like, like help me gauge it.
Yes, I'll do my best, which is to say that I'd say version 13 is a 9. It's got one more step to go and it's done. The Huawei, I was only in it for a half hour. It had no disengagements. As far as I could tell, it was also a 9, but it could be an 8. It could be a 10. It wasn't a long enough drive to have a disengagement, so I couldn't say.
Okay. And you don't know like how, well, was it just you in there and you engaged it and using it, or was it
No.
like supervised by potentially someone?
I'm not allowed to drive it because I am not, I do not have a Chinese driver's license. My friend was with me in the car. He tried it out, and so did the employee. We had an employee with us, so both of them got to try it out. I did not.
Was it LiDAR based, or is it only cameras?
That one was LiDAR based. But there are a lot of manufacturers who are not using LiDAR in China. It doesn't appear to be the silver bullet. And I'd read a comment a while back that said Huawei's not using neural nets end to end. It was heuristically coded, and it still seems to work really well. Kyle Connor from Out of Spec did a long drive in a Huawei and found it to be on par with Tesla. But he didn't yet have a chance to try Tesla's FSD in China. It had not yet been turned on when he was last there. So couldn't yet get an apples to apples comparison. But they are, and the big difference is in China, all of the autonomous systems are just included in the price. Nobody's trying to sell it as an add-on, which is, which tells me they are trying to make it a commodity.
I've got some answers to how you compare these if you guys want to go through them.
Sure.
Okay. So first of all, that Kyle Connor video said Huawei is better than Tesla. That was prior to Tesla launching FSD into China. And as soon as Tesla did that, lots of comparisons, of course, started to go head-to-head comparisons. And it's clear at this point that Tesla's FSD is head and shoulders better than Huawei or anyone else. The LiDAR-based systems theoretically don't hit anything, but they're not intelligent. They don't make the right decisions. One example I think I really like is when the guy said that if there is a intersection and the Huawei systems will just drive right through, Tesla's will pause because it knows it's an intersection. It could be risky, and it'll slow it down on the way through. These kinds of examples show you the difference. But here's, again, this guy named Rocky Liu, who is considered to be one of the intelligent driving experts, a guy who really looks at autonomous systems. He retested the 5 top systems that are publicly available in China, and he didn't want to name the brands because this is his business. So he just called them vendor A, vendor B, C, D, and E. But you can really easily tell that vendor A is Tesla and B to E is, we don't know, but it could be Xiaopeng, Li Auto, Momenta, Huawei, all these kind of things. So here's what he said. Vendor A remains firmly in the lead. Any minor issues are localization related rather than systemic. There are no safety concerns, and the ride experience is virtually flawless. Defensive behaviors and recovery maneuvers are exceptionally natural. It sees far, reacts quickly, performs with a level of human likeness that actually surpasses human drivers. The approach is elegantly simple, so refined that the software becomes almost invisible. I think this is what we keep hearing from beta testers in China for FSD. Then you go vendor B, and I think the assumption is this is Huawei. The latest version shows clear improvements in safety, though at the cost of some user experience. It offers the smoothest integration of lateral and longitudinal control among all tested, and its human-like behavior is second only to A. The main regression appears in interactions with electric scooters. The system now applies noticeable, though not uncomfortable, light braking more often. However, due to limitations of classic control strategies, its dynamic object detection and prediction aren't always accurate, occasionally causing it to stop unnecessarily for stationary scooters. That's an example of one that people say, right? Like the Tesla understands when there's a bus there or something stopped and it goes, okay, should I go around it or not? And the others, like Huawei's and others, they'll stop because they don't want to hit it, but they don't know what's actually happening and they'll sit there for a long time. That's the kind of like examples of differences. Vendor C and D, two are technically and functionally similar. Both offer, vendor C have stricter constraints, but the key difference, whatever. So yeah, they both exhibit occasional edge cases that raise concerns. So, and vendor E's panic, very, very issue. So that's good example of how to compare them.
Yeah, there's a lot of competition in that space. And one thing we're already seeing, I already told Herbert this, but I haven't told you, Nick, is that we're seeing a lot of partnerships already where a smaller manufacturer will say, I'm just going to license Huawei's system and use theirs because it's easier. And so the consolidation begins.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting, but I don't think I think I'd kind of like to go back. I don't like playing this game so much about like when will it happen, whatever, because that's so subjective. Like, what is it happening mean? Like, is the question when do we hit $300 share, 400, 500, 600, 1,000? And so that's I'd like to like narrow down your topic here, Herbert, on when you say when will the stock reflect
pop. Yeah, that's what I say. So basically I'm actually reacting the opposite, which is like I hear too often from too many Tesla investors just saying, wait until June when Robotaxi hits, we're going to see the stock skyrocket or whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you mean by that? And like, I personally am not expecting it to pop. And what do I mean by pop? I guess that's a good question, right? Is it going to be like a 5%, 10%, or is it going to be 5 times? I certainly don't think that we're going to see the 5 times jump until June of next year when you start seeing actual revenue earnings. Some people think that the 5 times jump could happen this year once people recognize that Tesla's won the game and it's going to go wide, and they've already proven it. One city, they've got 5,000 cars in one city, like some number like that, like these milestones. Is it miles driven? Is it miles? Is it a number of cars? Is it multiple cities? When does it happen that sometime this year or maybe next year, whatever, the stock will go 5x? And then, but the question I'm asking is, do you think that in June, just June, that there will be a pop? And I'm like, well, it depends on macro. If the macro is not there, I don't think you'll see anything happen in June, is what I'm saying. What's a pop? I don't know. Let's give it 5% jump, 10% jump, which can happen any day, right? It happens every day. Some days it goes up 10% and drops 10%. So I don't even know, what I mean by that, but that's,
My success at trying to guess what the stock will do is very bad. If I had seen the earnings report the day before it came out, I would have bet against it and I would have lost.
Yeah. For me, I look again, pop and all that. Like, here's what I see. I think by the end of the year, we could be back to all-time highs. I would consider that a huge move. That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's essentially a double, right? Like from where we are right now. Like that'd be up 100% roughly, right? Like that's huge. That'd be a huge move. So I think we could get there. We could be higher, but like a whole 5x in June, like I don't see it, and I don't think it's pragmatic or realistic. Even when I take it back to the factories, when Giga Berlin or Giga Austin were completed, you know how long it took them to actually start producing vehicles after that? We don't know what is going to happen with the robotaxis. It might take a long time before they go into another city. They may decide, you know what? We're learning a lot in the city right now. Let's keep learning. So when we go to the next city, it's a lot faster. Let's not spread ourselves thin, trying to do 2 cities at once or 3 cities at once. And then all of a sudden we're like sitting there chasing our tail and there's risk. If we get in an accident or anything, that's going to be headline news. That's going to be really bad. Like, we don't know yet how they're going to hedge or what's going to happen moving forward. So, to assume that there's not going to be this learning curve is insane. Not saying that they're unsolvable problems, but Tesla does not know what it takes. They're going to figure it out in real time, and they'll iterate. And I'm sure by the time they're launching in their 4th, 5th city, it's going to be 10x faster than what it was in the first city. And it'll slowly roll out. But I think that it seems silly to me to think that we'll 5x in June. Like, yep. If that's the case, like,
we're on the same page. Yeah. When you listen to Elon, and this is Elon himself saying things like this, right? So first of all, that it won't move the needle of the earnings until second half of next year, right in line with, forecast by CERN. So just keep that in mind, right? It won't move the earnings. So once the earnings start moving and you actually see the revenue from Robotaxi actually happening, that I think you can't argue at that point, right? That will eventually stock definitely follows, cash and growth at that point. Now, before then, before you actually see actual, revenue numbers, he said already, right? It's going to be dipping toe. It's going to be very slow. This is Elon. So if Elon says this, I think that, just take it to just, I immediately think, okay, well, that's right. You're not going to see, they're going to do very slow rollouts until maybe the beginning of next year. I wouldn't expect that this year we're going to start getting that. Now, if it happens that we, at any moment, they can add 1,000 cars. They can add 5,000 cars at any time that they want to, and it's going to be slow. And then all of a sudden, we're ready to go. Here's 5,000 cars. They could do that. But I'm thinking that won't happen until January, February, March next year. So that's all. I'm just trying to put a little bit of, some people keep saying that here's June, everything's going to jump. Well, tell me, is it such a big deal? And it could be, by the way, it could very well be that Robotaxi is such a big new invention, such a big market that we've never seen before, that it could overpower a bad macro, during a recession, during a risk-off environment. It could do that. I can see some arguments. Some people are saying that to me. I could see that. I certainly see it with bots. I think that bots can and will overcome the macro, because when you have bad macro and if a company like Tesla says, I'm still going to build 1 million bots, they're going to sell 1 million bots regardless of how bad macro is, because guess what? The companies that are suffering will want the bots. That's how you solve the problems that you're having, labor issues and labor costs. So, but is Robotaxi big enough that it can overcome this? And I don't think so personally, but that's some people are saying that.
I don't know. I think it could. I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of a hedge for Tesla too, because assuming that the rollout goes well, I guess it depends when this recession happens. If you're talking about like today, okay, then no. But if the recession happened next year, end of next year, sometime like that, well, then the fact that, okay, they roll it out, they're literally going to all these cities. Anything that they're not selling, they wouldn't have to reduce production, because they could literally pump into it to be FSD for or a Robotaxi. Like, they, not saying that would solve every problem. Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't, but it's a lever that no other OEM would have. And that's a big deal.
Yeah, the other thing too, and so that while I'm being very cautious about Robotaxi and Robotaxi launch and how fast it will do and what it'll impact the stock, I think FSD is so good. that if it continues to improve, which I believe it will by the end of this year, I am fully expecting that they will get to, FSD version 14. It's going to be another 10x at least better than what we have now. It's going to be noticeably better. That will be a driver for new car sales. Now, will that overcome a recession and high interest rates? Not quite, but it will certainly help Tesla's sales by the end of this year. I'm thinking people are not been giving that enough due of how much better that the car is. It's a completely different car. It's like a different product you're selling when you sell it with FSD.
To me, the difference between version 11 and 12 was pretty stark, but between 12 and 13 was night and day. And the fact that we haven't seen a major build since November tells me they're perfecting whatever the next build is, and it's going to be another generational jump. I've said many times how crazy FSD is. That FSD is bonkers in terms of its quality. Yes, FSD's nuts.
I mean, it's crazy that even Elon mentioned that you could sleep in the car, do your makeup this year. I mean, whoa, that could be an Elon statement.
I can't wait to do my makeup.
I want to hear Ashok say that. But if they can really, if that truly turns out to be true, then imagine what that would do to car sales. Well, now, I'm not expecting it, but that's what he's saying, right?
What I think you'll see is as robotaxis go out, like it'd be interesting if we could do like if we had like the breakdown for states or cities that have FSD adoption, because I bet you as robotaxis roll out in Austin and people experience it, if you have a Tesla, you're like, oh, I can do this in my own car. Yeah. Like there's such a lack of awareness of it, and even then, like as it gets better, to Brian, your point, if I already bought the car and I can download FSD and I can say like, yeah, let me go to a restaurant and I don't need to worry about parking. Like, yeah, go back home or go whatever, or, like, or hey, I've been drinking, let me call my car. Like if it can be your own private road taxi now, like it'd be interesting to see how many more people choose to add it on when they purchase their vehicle. Like I think that will go up. And remember, for every one person that buys a Tesla with FSD, which is $8,000, that's more margin than what they get from selling a vehicle.
Yeah, exactly.
Almost infinite. Even if somebody goes out and buys a hardware 2 used car and says update it, if they can, the cost to update it is what, $1,000 or $2,000 for $8,000. That's insane. That's more than rust proofing margin at a dealership.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that could be, another big lever that comes to fruition. But look, it's all going to happen in time, and I don't think that there's anything moving forward that will hurt Tesla as far as the company goes. They're not going anywhere. They're going to survive. Essentially got no debt, lots of cash on the balance sheet. They've got all the talent in the world. They can't build or hire enough, right? Like it's like they're constrained in many ways. What did I say something wrong?
Brian, no, a comment said echo, and I don't know. I don't hear an echo.
Oh, echo. But yeah, I think the future is bullish, but it just may not happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
I guess one other thing, like just as another data point, I talked about Giga Berlin or Giga Texas, because I remember those were like big milestones that we were waiting a long time for. But we were also waiting a long time to see the Cybercab. And even once we saw it and we had We Robot Day, the stock was down the next day.
Yeah, exactly. But yet the things we've been saying is going to happen is happening. We actually now have physical Cybercabs. We just showed off all of these, these castings.
Yeah.
Right. They're pretty soon. I mean, people go, oh, it's been delayed. Yeah. But then one day it's here. We're actually having Robotaxi launch in June. You're going to have at least 100 Cybercabs, if not now, next year. Then we'll have 1,000, then we'll have 10,000. And it's going to be, people are going to wake up and realize, yeah, everything that's been said is happening.
I will tell you a big frustration I see is every time there's a product announcement or an investor day, a battery day, a AI day, you see the same dinguses. I can't think of a very good PG word for what these diphthongs are, but will come
Dingleberry.
out. Dingleberries will come out and say, "Oh, there's old Elon pump and dump again." So, as a reminder, you have to sell the shares for it to be a dump. So that right there is done. And second of all, not one of those days has moved the stock. Not one. If anything, Battery Day made the stock go down. Cybertruck unveiling made the stock go down. I don't know. I can't think of any of those days that has moved the stock up. Investor Day, the one that I was really sure would do the trick, didn't. These events are for us to understand the future.
It's also intellectually dishonest, is the only way I can think about saying it, to say that Elon's pump and dumping, to say that Elon's always late. Like, to me, it's intellectually dishonest because, first of all, these are forward-looking statements. They're giving a projection of the future with their guiding towards where the roadmap is going. Every time Elon gives a timeline, he literally always says, based on what I can see right now,
Right.
my best prediction is, like, he never says it'll be done on this date, you can bet it. It's like, no, he literally, like, what I know today, this. That's it. Like, he's not pumping and dumping. You ask the question, he's giving the answer. Like, that's what he thinks.
And his most recent one of those was, but I have been known to be optimistic on my timelines. What more do you want for qualification than that?
Exactly.
It is 6 minutes to the top of the hour. I'm going to take my quick break so that when this show ends, you can join me in the after show where I will answer questions from the comments. If this show runs a few minutes over, that's great too. I won't start until this one concludes, and I will be listening in. Nick, a pleasure chatting with you as always. Herbert,
welcome back,
a
my
delight.
friend.
Thank you, and I'll see you guys on the after show.
Yeah. My uncle actually, called me up, elderly, and he said he was going to buy a Tesla, and he never bought one before because he heard about how great the self-driving is. And I was like, "Ooh, okay, this is great," because I've never, first of all, expected this. I mean, it's just an anecdote, right? Doesn't mean anything, means nothing. But it's just, at what point do you think that, we keep talking about this, right? So few people really even understand what's going on, that our Teslas can drive, that there's going to be a Robotaxi, that there's even Waymo. A lot of people don't even realize Waymo's out there today. And then I always kept saying, imagine when Summon is available, and that could have the most likely for it to go viral, right? Because I'm thinking you have Walmart, you have Target, people will watch cars driving themselves, which I see all the time. When I summon my car, I see people turning their heads going, what am I watching? So it's happening, but it did not seem to go viral yet. Right? I've not seen, TikToks.
Banish. It'll be Banish. Banish is the big one.
Yeah, sure. Here we are always going, just wait till this. No, that's the one's going to go viral.
What I'm saying is Banish has I think more of a utility.
Yeah.
Because you can literally just get out in the front, get out, go in, let the car take its time. It doesn't have to, if it goes, I'm not going to be like, oh, it's going too slow. Yeah. I'm not worried, but I can just get out and go in.
Yeah. But people who see this, and again, my wife just over and over and over again, every time we do Summon, she just shakes her head. He goes, I don't understand why people don't realize this car can do this. And, like we are sitting there, I can't believe this car is doing this. It drives itself to pick us up, right? At a location where I'm standing. And it's like, people don't know these things are happening. So when is that going to happen? And I just don't see the difference. Now, Waymo only has 700 cars. Let's let them have 1,000 cars. Fine. But it's only 1,000 cars. And so it really isn't quite yet the numbers. Now, once Tesla has, I don't know, throw a number out there, 5,000, 10,000 cars, picking up everybody who gets into it, that's when they're going to go, what's going on? This is a regular car I can buy, right? Waymos, I don't think they think that way because they know it's a commercial vehicle that you have to plop on all these things. Maybe that will start going viral, maybe. I don't know. But then the other way to say this, it's already common. No, like I don't know. The cities that have seen it have seen it.
Yes.
And that didn't go viral. So
yeah,
Hard to know.
I think once they actually start to try and scale intentionally, I think that's when you're going to start seeing if there's any real like out of ordinary stock movement. I think it'll be then.
Yeah. You know, the other thing too that I've been thinking about is that we study the numbers and we see that Robotaxi is a massive business, especially once they go below $1 per mile, like $2 per mile. Once they start going down, the TAM increases from 180 billion to a trillion to 5 trillion to even 20 trillion. You know, like just the use cases explode once you bring it down to 25 cents a mile. But I think investors, I don't think they understand that Robotaxi is that big of a business. I think, yeah, it's a line of business. Great. They're doing it now. But I don't think they go, as opposed to bots, by the way. I think on robots, I think the average normal investor understands that robots is such a big opportunity that they would invest in robots more than Robotaxi. You think I'm wrong?
No, I think megapacks are to Robotaxi as Robotaxi is to bots.
To bots, right.
You know, yeah. It's funny. But I think also with the Robotaxi, I don't think a lot of people understand like how close this is and how soon it's going to be here. I think a lot of people think it's still like 10 years away. I really do. I think most people think it's still 10 years away. And meanwhile, they don't like, I find it weird that people drive. I use FSD so much. And I have for so long.
I know
that it's weird to me that people drive.
Yeah.
Like I literally live in a whole different world than everybody else.
By the way, I love driving because the comment that I hear from so many people when I'm at dinner or something like that is, but I love driving. And I'm like, okay, but do you ever use Uber? Ever? That people, there's use cases for Uber. So there's use cases for ride hailing. So even though you love driving, that's fine. But I love driving and I still also love turning on FSD, even though I love driving. So
even moving things around, you know, like if I order like an Uber Eats, like why would I pay for a human to be in that? Right. Like think of how much more affordable that is. Like what business is not going to want to partner? Like it's like, even if you're not moving humans around and you only move goods around, it is way more cost effective to do this. Yeah. And it's just obvious.
And I think I need to repeat too, because I specifically having this conversation with you. If people on the comments and you're the viewer and you're listening to this and you go and say, yeah, for sure, you know, they don't believe you, they don't believe me. It's because you don't try FSD, number one. And two, some people will say, yeah, I do it. I use FSD all the time, but I have a tremendous amount of disengagements. I implore you. I only speak to the latest version 13, but also using hardware 4. That's, I think, for me. And then the big deal with me was the cleaning of the cameras. When I brought it into service and they cleaned the camera, you know, like you still hear people saying that, yeah, but FSD still has issues with the sunlight. I had issues with the sunlight. Every day I would get a warning about the sun glare until, speaking to you, remember? We talked about this. I brought in my car into service. They cleaned the front camera underneath the windshield. They cleaned it. I've never had that sunlight glare issue again. I believe that people who are experiencing that is because they have it's a known issue with this cars where there's, you know, some sort of fogging up that happens, condensation that happens there. And then of course, sunlight will make that kind of like hard to see and the camera gets obscured. Now the car knows that it has that problem and it's telling you it has this problem. So I'm not worried about, you know, it's a known issue. So they've solved this problem ongoing. But if you are having this problem, sunlight, please just check that out. I'm not saying that that's going to solve you, but for me, that's what solved my problem. So I wonder how many other people don't realize that could be the reason that this happening to you too. But
yeah, I had my friend Greg pick me up the other day in his Tesla we're going to a brewery, and he picked me up and he wasn't using FSD, and I didn't notice at first. And then I was like, I all of a sudden, like, just the way he was driving, like, damn, dude, like, you should turn FSD on. Like, you are, like, with all due respect, you're not a good driver. Like, you're just, it's just like, I'm so used to a perfect driver
Yeah.
So then I get in with you. I'm like, geez, like, what are we? Is this a theme park ride? What are we doing here?
Right.
And I'm sure like he's actually driving decently, but
You got
compared
used
to perfection,
better driving. Yeah.
yeah, I'm just so used to it that now it's like it is just. I mean, when was the last time you drove with someone else?
Good question. No, that's been
Yeah,
me for 3 months.
Yeah, exactly. So you put all these miles on, constantly driving, where it's always a FSD, and all of a sudden you ride with someone else, and you're in the passenger seat. Not even the Uber where you're in the back, and you just like with it, when you get an Uber, you just expect it to be whatever. But like when you get into someone else's Tesla and you're in there, and it's like, dude, like,
yeah.
why are you putting my risk at life here?
My wife
my life at risk.
used to say, okay, I would turn on FSD and she's in the passenger car and she would go, I prefer when you drive because I don't take unnecessary, like I don't get to switch lanes as often as FSD seems to do because FSD wants to pass and so forth. She goes, I just don't like that, right? I prefer it when you drive where you're a little bit more cautious. I said, oh, I didn't realize that that's what you want. There are 3 settings. Right? There's one that's called hurry, one called standard, and one called chill. And I put it on standard. When I drive by myself, I actually prefer hurry personally.
Same.
But standard is great. It's fine. But she doesn't like standard. So I said, fine. I switched it to chill. All of a sudden, the car started driving exactly the way she wanted it to drive. Right? Sticks to the right, doesn't make as many lane changes. It drives as fast as the speed limit. It takes long, but just a little bit more safer. It feels safer. So, but I always argue the other way around too, which sometimes, I speed up to be safer, to get out of a semi and get out of that space and get away from people and get myself out of there so that, so that I can become feeling safer. So sometimes being chill or slower driving does not mean it's safer, but anyways, so people don't realize that there's settings. And you can make it drive the way you like it to drive to a certain extent. Yeah.
Well said.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Stay on and you'll be sent over to Brian's channel. You can do Q&A with him. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you again next week.
Cheers.